Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our second Hub Cures event, leading up to Mulsi Plus 2021 on July 22nd. And we're delighted to have you. I know it's a beautiful day, and many of you would rather be out in the sun, but thank you for joining us. And some of you were around for networking prior. After Jennifer and Nabiha have their fireside chat, we'll leave the platform open till 7 o'clock or so. So we'll get some time to network afterwards as well. And you will soon be seeing a registration for Mulsi Plus, as well as all the rest of the Hub Cures coming out. So please register early. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer and Nabiha.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Vineet. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm sure it was a fabulous day. I was in and out, and I'm so thrilled that I get to kick it off here at the end with Dr. Nabiha Saklayen. So, Nabiha, if you want to join me on stage by turning on your camera, this is a great opportunity for all of us to learn a little bit more about you, but also about your company, Cellino, which is doing really impressive science. And so, for those of you who aren't familiar with Nabiha, Dr. Saklayen is a bio-inspired physicist and entrepreneur. Born in Saudi Arabia, she grew up in Germany and went to high school in Sri Lanka. Her exposure to a variety of cultures, ideas, and experience developed a sense of deep curiosity for the world around her, leading her to study physics and mathematics at Emory University. Then she went on to complete a PhD in physics at Harvard University as an HHMI International Fellow. She has been recognized in the MIT Tech Review, the 35 Innovators Under 35 list, as well as the Forbes 30 Under 30 Healthcare list. She's currently the CEO and co-founder of Cellino Biotech, which we're going to hear a lot more about in a little bit, a regenerative medicine company using a multidisciplinary approach to engineer autologous cell therapies. So, Nabiha, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to this.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted and was a full prep call for this. So I'm just excited for our conversation tonight. Thank you.
Yes, and I tried my best to include at least a fireplace for our fireside chat.
Beautiful.
And a bit of ambiance here.
Yes.
So why don't we start, with learning a little bit about your company and how you got involved with Cellino. And many people in the audience, especially for an event like this, which is an early stage life science company focused event, might be thinking about doing what you have done, which is take technology out of an academic setting and make a go at it. So why don't we start by talking a little bit about how you knew it was the right time to spin out Cellino?
Yes, fantastic place to start, and I'm happy to share my journey. So I founded Cellino during the end of my PhD at Harvard. I was in the physics program, as you mentioned, Jennifer, and it was a fun time. It was a fun time. Physics PhDs these days are tending to be very long, 7 or 8 years, but I was committed because I wanted to finish in 5 years, and I wanted to go do a postdoc and an industry job after. So I was on this very tight timeline that I'd set for myself. And it was interesting because I had committed to living at the interface of physics and biology for my PhD, because I really felt that for my generation of physicists, there were many important problems that could be solved in biology to enable further innovation in biomedicine and bioengineering using tools and approaches from physics. So it was a very convergent, fluid time. And I did my PhD in a laser physics and nanotechnology group. So studied lasers, did nanotechnology, so did nanofabrication in a clean room, which was just a tremendous and very interesting, unique experience. And, I was developing applications for biophotonics. So how do we develop new laser activated nanomaterials to engineer cells? And in my mind, when I started the PhD, I thought, okay, I'll get to some prototyping stage and then I'll hand off my PhD topic to another graduate student and they'll do the fun stuff, which is the working with cells, because things just take forever in academia. So that was my assumption. But the last year of my PhD was very incredible because everything started to work very quickly. And I I very much believe in riding the momentum. When opportunities are presenting themselves, I jump on it. So as the technology started working in the lab, I started asking the question, is this useful to biologists? I need to know. I really wanted to have a chapter in my thesis that talked about, okay, these are biologists I talked to, and this is what they said about the feasibility of this technology in their world. And those 3 to 6 months were incredible. So I had the chance to work with George Church, Derek Rossi, David Scadden, just incredible biologists at Harvard Stem Cell Institute, Harvard Medical School, and they all looked at the technology and were excited. They were excited to the point where they said, Nabiha, you need to start a company. I said, wow, really? I've never thought about that. And they said, no, this could change biology. So when you hear that type of phrase from one of the leaders in biology, I couldn't just ignore it. So that was a pivotal moment. And I remember having a very meaningful conversation with Derek about this. And that's how we got started. And, looking back, I think when, the question, when's the right time to spin out of university or academia, for me, it really was just wrapping up my PhD. And that was it. And just spinning it out. I see a lot of, obviously there's a transition phase where you have to set up your company. And, I built my founding team with Marina and Matthias, who are both fantastic co-founders. Those were very important to me. But beyond that, in my case, I really felt that the technology would benefit from being outside of academia, because then you're really forced to work towards finding product market fit and figuring out what is the technology useful for, and really getting out of the inventor bias. As scientists and innovators and inventors, I've been writing patents for a long time, even in graduate school, because I saw that there was something interesting in this technology, but you get very biased about what the application should look like. So it's very important to leave the ivory tower and go talk to and engage deeply with real world customers and partners to understand what that journey is going to be like. So that's how the timing worked out. It was all very fast. So I finished my PhD, met my co-founders, started doing intensive customer. I did about over customer interviews in the span of 3 months, and then met the Engine, which is a venture fund spun out of MIT around September of that year. And they wrote our first check. And it all happened very, very quickly. And I know that's not everyone's story. And I'm very grateful that I was always supported in that pathway. But, I always made sure that I was making all the right connections. I was in the right place at the right time, asking the right questions. And it all happened very quickly.
Yeah, right place at the right time. So you mentioned a little bit about the product fit, excuse me. That's such an important concept. I've worked with so many early stage companies that there's a fine line between knowing and loving your products, but also being open to new information that might force you to think about it differently. And can you, tell us, did that ever happen to you and your company, and how did you respond?
Yes, absolutely. It's happened to me. It's happened to Cellino. This is what happens in all startups. And if it's not happening, I think I would be worried, because it means the iteration cycles aren't happening quickly enough with developing a product, testing it with potential users, coming back, reiterating. And that to me is maybe one of the most fun parts of being an entrepreneur, because you really can see the product definition evolving very quickly because you're getting the right input and you're moving in the right direction. I'll share one story. So originally, the laser editing technology that I invented through my PhD, it's a laser editing technology to engineer cells by delivering payloads into the cells, such as CRISPR-Cas9 for gene editing applications. Very powerful, very useful, very interesting. Everybody was excited about that potential. And so, when the company started, we were building out that platform capability. And I went to meet one of my mentors, Bastiano Sana, who was the CEO of Sema Therapeutics at the time, which has now been acquired by Vertex. And I was showing him my data, and we're talking, and he's like, Nabiha, this is great, but you know what problem we're dealing with is removing low quality cells in our cell therapy products. Can you do that with your technology? I said, yes, of course we can, but that's easy. It's like, well, that's what we need right now, Nabiha. So I'm telling you, that's really what we need. I said, okay, I'll think about it. So I left his office. I was like, wow, okay. I reflected on that response for myself. Oh, that's easy, and because I'm an inventor and innovator, I want to do hard things. And that's why I became a physicist. Let's solve the hardest problems. But there was an easier problem to be solved that had tremendous commercial potential. So I went back, looked at all of my customer discovery notes, and started to see a pattern, Jennifer, of multiple experts talking about the problem of having unwanted cells in their cell therapy products and how to resolve that. There wasn't enough innovation around that space. And that's a lot of what we do now. We apply AI-guided laser editing to produce really high-quality stem cells for autologous cell therapies. We're also applying it to differentiation parts of the process. And it's so interesting. I would have never in a million years imagined that Cellino would be commercializing this as a platform capability today. But that's what you get from being in close contact with the right experts and listening very carefully and paying attention, and not just dismissing things because you've thought differently about it. So that was definitely a very important part of my journey, and it's constantly evolving. Even our AI-based automation is also a product of those deep partner engagements. How do we remove any human error from the process? Okay, we need to add machine learning. And our investors at Tesla Ventures, Vinod and Alex, they're super passionate about it. And because of that, now we're implementing AI in every part of our manufacturing process, which just makes the entire process higher yield, more scalable, eliminates error. Just the benefits are tremendous. So I think my takeaway is I'm always keeping an open mind to what others are telling me and trying to back that up with data to see, okay, where do we focus our platform efforts now? And we have to say no to a lot of things. Right. It's hard. For us now, the laser editing with gene editing, the original work that I did in my PhD has been put on pause. And as an inventor, I miss that work. But as a business person, we have to put that on pause to build the most valuable products right now.
Sure. You mentioned several different disciplines in your answer there, AI and photonics and cell biologists. You have a particularly cross-disciplinary team and an approach to your technology, and that's becoming more, common. And, it also can present challenges. And I wonder if you can speak to sort of your experience of leading a convergent multidisciplinary team.
Yes, happy to speak of that. I think I love the word convergence. That's become one of my big mantras in life. And my experience with convergence, obviously being a physicist and then moving into biology, getting absolutely fascinated with the problems in biology, working with world leading biologists, and then now finding myself into AI. Cellino does really live at the intersection of machine learning, laser physics, and stem cell biology, a lot of different biological tools as well. And it's really powerful because the types of innovations that my team is creating and is producing is unlike anything you would see across individual disciplines. So there's this multidisciplinarity that just flows through our entire company. It flows through our entire IP strategy, our commercialization strategy, and all the different products we're working on. And my priority has always been to, in order to have successful professional working relationships, it's very important to communicate very well. And it doesn't matter which discipline you're in. It's true for physicists working together. It's true for biologists working together. So I've always made that a priority. And, I made the transition to working with biologists about a decade ago. So making sure that I'm listening, making sure that I'm explaining things in a way that's being processed by my colleagues and my collaborators, and making sure we're doing that in all directions. So at Cellino, we spend a lot of time working on our communication skills. And in fact, we have a professional leadership and communication coach in-house as my chief of staff. Wow. Who works with the team every day, every hour of the day, to make sure we're doing that really well. And that really paid off during COVID as well, because you had, of course, the challenges of, and the learnings of working in a multidisciplinary space, plus having to do that remotely, plus we also raised our seed financing during this round, so we grew quite a bit, and we've hired about yeah, 5 to 7 people that I've never met in person. I'm looking forward to meeting them this weekend. We're having an outdoor picnic. So just a lot of different elements that need to be managed. So by making communication a core pillar of our company and a core value, I think we've done the best we could, and we're going to keep working on it. Jennifer, it's an ongoing process. We also just today started rolling out our first 360 performance reviews. And actually the management team is going first. So we're going down a top-down manner to set the tone for everything. And I really believe in working on our skills to be the best versions of ourselves for the company. I think it makes us a stronger company.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I've never heard of a communications coach in-house. That's fascinating. At the Mass Life Sciences Center, we have new leadership, and we just went through sort of an in-house retreat where we understood our Myers-Briggs type analysis and how we communicate and our personalities. But I haven't heard of that in a biotech, an early stage biotech company like yourself. That's a really interesting adaptation to being convergent. One thing also that's particularly, interesting and relevant to this audience is the fact that you're doing all of this in Massachusetts. And there's lots of other people here that are also trying to do that. Can you speak a little bit about how, being in Massachusetts has helped you develop this disruptive technology and build a team like yours that's really, truly cross-disciplinary?
I love that question. And I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, I would not have been an entrepreneur if I wasn't in Massachusetts for my PhD. That is a fact, because I'm a scientist. I'm chasing my intellectual curiosity. I ended up inventing a cool technology, but the minute there was a shift in my perspective, thanks to my collaborators, that I'm interested in entrepreneurship. I should explore that. Maybe there's something here. There were just tremendous resources all around me. So I graduated in May. And that summer I did Mass Challenge, which was amazing. I highly recommend that program. And in the fall I did Mass Connect. But by that time I already had met my first investors. I built my founding team. We secured lab space. I had this incredible network of mentors and advisors in Kendall Square who spent hours upon hours with me. They were on speed dial with me as I was term sheets. Really, Cambridge is the biotech capital of the world. There's no other way to describe it. And you really feel that electric energy. So it's all about, for me, it was about letting the universe know of my intentions. I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm willing to work hard. I'm willing to learn. And everything just happened so quickly. So I sometimes look back, I very much feel like an accidental entrepreneur. And Massachusetts and the Massachusetts-Boston community and the resources, the biotech community, the university communities, Harvard, MIT, BU, just 40 institutions, incredible talent. So I guess the takeaway is, if you want to do a startup in biotech, this is the best place in the world. And there's every resource under the sun to make it happen for you, but you have to want it. You have to work hard. I remember my first summer when I launched the company, I told you I did about 100 customer interviews. So I literally hopped around Harvard Square, Central Square, Kendall Square, Longwood, Seaport. I was going to the Ginkgo building. I was going to Mass Challenge, and I did maybe 15, 16 meetings a day, 7 days a week. But I enjoyed it. But, I think that's part of the reason why we found this incredible product market fit. So there's just a ton of blood, sweat, and tears involved in entrepreneurship. But if you're willing to put in that effort and you have a compelling technology and you're solving a problem that needs to be solved, this is the best place to do it. So, and talent. Yes, that's the other piece, incredible talent. And we've, the 3 founders were all physicists, Harvard and MIT trained. And then we quickly built our stem cell biology team, just fantastic talent. And then when we moved into machine learning, also exceptional talent, very much on par with Silicon Valley. Now we're building our automation team. We're building our regulatory team. Literally cannot think of a discipline that you don't have exceptional talent for in the Massachusetts area. So very, very exciting. And also geographically, we're in a very, very convenient location as a cell therapy manufacturer, because on the East Coast, we're in the Northeast, very close to go to Europe, you can go West Coast. So it's a very dynamic place to be in geographically. So, wow, yes, I said a lot, but I really cannot sing enough praises of Massachusetts and really give this environment and ecosystem all the credit it truly deserves for supporting the next generation of entrepreneurs like myself.
Well, part of my job, you might not know, is actually to recruit and retain companies here in Massachusetts. So I'm going to be rewinding and using some of those quotes that you just said, if you don't mind, because they were lovely. But I 100% agree. I think personally, I'd love to talk a little bit about you. And as you've shared with me, and like many women and people of color, you were one of the few people who looked like you in many classrooms, labs, and now boardrooms. And I think your personal story and your lived experience has certainly no doubt contributed to your success. Can you talk a little bit about how you overcame some of these obstacles to get to where you are today?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I've always been different. I was the 6 or 7-year-old girl obsessed with space and just obsessed with my astronomy books and obsessed with Harry Potter. And I had a very wonderful mom who just supported everything I was doing. So nothing ever felt strange. And I think having that self-awareness and just feeling that security at home was absolutely critical for everything else I did later on in my career. Whenever I was the only person, and only woman in my physics classes all through undergrad. Physics is usually 20% women at the undergrad level and the PhD level. So that's just, I guess, how it is. We'd love to see more representation and balance, and I think we're seeing great progress in those numbers, but that's how it is. And I look at it as, I definitely think it's important to remember that every time that I'm in a position like I am right now, I'm having this conversation as a CEO of a company. It's a great opportunity to change stereotypes and change how people think about implicit bias. And that's been a very important theme in my life throughout my entire life, is to educate other people, bring awareness to the fact that not all physicists are old white men with white tufts of hair. They're not all super awkward, that don't know how to have a conversation. So that helps a lot. I think having the right mindset when you're dealing with any situation that might feel strange or out of place, it's really about reminding yourself that you absolutely deserve to be here. You deserve to be here. You've worked hard. I've been in physics over a decade, and now I'm in entrepreneurship. And yes, we're paving the path forward with this novel, cutting-edge technology, but it's super exciting. It's very motivating to work on. One of the things I think about a lot is, of course, there are a lot of great initiatives that are taking a top-down approach in how we increase representation in our communities across all industry sectors. I think leadership should truly reflect society so that the best solutions and products can be developed. And in biotech, that's a 100% true. Leadership should reflect society, so we built the best medicines for all patients. And at Cellino, our mission is to scale up autologous personalized cells for every human. And that's an important core component of who we are. And it's motivating to work on that. So top-down approach is great. I also believe a lot in bottom-up approaches. So, like I mentioned, we have this leadership and communication coach on our team, and she's doing a fantastic job of helping the team communicate effectively across all disciplines, but also helping develop personalized leadership programs for all of the scientists on my team that's perfectly tailored to their individual needs and supporting them in a way that helps them accelerate in their career at Cellino and beyond. Because I think that's how we change the face of the industry and we change how the balance works. I also launched an education program for high school and middle school students called I'm a Scientist, which gives me a lot of joy. And the vision there is to share stories of scientists like myself who don't fit into any particular mold, and they're dynamic, they're diverse, they have a rich story. So we want to present these interesting personalities to draw students into STEM through storytelling. And that's been fantastic. It's now live in all 50 states and serving about 250,000 students annually. So yeah, so with me, it's, I look at the status quo of imbalance and inequity, and I always take the approach, okay, that's motivation for me and everybody else to roll up our sleeves and get to work. Let's make it, let's change things, because as we change things, that's how we open up new medicines for patients. We bring around new technologies to fight climate change. We, bring about new sources of energy to the world. So I guess I'm a very determined optimist on that. And that's what I think we all should support one another to cultivate that level of optimism, because we all have to push through, and change the status quo together.
Absolutely. Helping each other. You said that, it reminded me of this program to support women entrepreneurs. And it's a public-private partnership with some large companies. And one thing I didn't ever anticipate as a bonus, as a positive that would come out of it, is the cohort helping each other, right? So each year we support 5 women, and we expose them to all sorts of different coaches and people who are more senior to them. But the help that they give each other also has been monumental in what the program and each individual person has been able to achieve. So I think that's spot on. I think, hearing all of this, I think the audience is probably really dying to know what your advice would be to, if you had to rewind and you had to think about things that you wish you knew before you dove into the world of entrepreneurship. What are a few things that you think would be valuable?
Yes. It's a very worthwhile career trajectory. It's incredibly rewarding. It's intellectually stimulating. All of the above. You get to have great impact in the world. I do want to be clear, though, it is a tough career path. It is a 24-hour job, 7 days a week. You're never able to turn your brain off. So I just want to make that clear, because essentially your company is your baby and it has to take priority over everything else. And I've also, felt to the point where it really cost me in terms of my health and well-being, but that's the level of obsession it takes to launch something like this off the ground that nobody's ever done before. There's a reason why it's hard and nobody's ever done before. So I do want to explicitly say that, and I do share this with every aspiring entrepreneur that knocks on my door. I do tell them, hey, let's be honest, it's very, very hard. It'll be harder than anything else you've done before. And I did a PhD in physics at Harvard, so that was hard. So let's just be clear. And then the other thing is also, we think about stress as a negative concept, and stress is bad. There's also such a thing as positive stress, I would say. And even if your company is going really well, then you have this added responsibility and the expectation to keep going. What are you doing next? Like, now we're getting ready to build a platform for clinical grade manufacturing. Wow. It's almost like you're chasing the next horizon, and you're getting there, and then you're chasing the next one, which is even more ambitious than what you just passed. So when I started the company in 2017, it was like, oh, okay, we'll explore this idea of building a company. We'll see what happens. And I think it's a good thing that we're humble. At least I was humble and didn't really think this would take off. So I didn't think through a scenario where we would be a successful company. We would have 18 people on the team. We would have raised $16 million in seed financing. None of those things. But once things start to happen and they start working, it is like rapid pace. So you have to be prepared. And I think it's very important to take care of your health and fitness and nutrition, making sure you have a rhythm to make sure you can cope with all the physical stresses of doing this. And the other thing is something that I hadn't thought about is when I started the company with my co-founders, we all took on the risk of starting a company, and we were okay with things not working out because we were founders. But as you start growing your team and you start having employees, it is a big responsibility to carry the weight of so many paychecks and so many families and so many health insurance plans. which is not something I really thought about. So definitely worth thinking about. But these are, I don't want to sound like I'm complaining. These are blessings, of course, right? I'm very grateful that we are in this position, that we're growing, and we have a fantastic team. But I think the takeaway is, even when things are going well, it's pretty intense and stressful. And then the last thing is, I didn't know much about investors when I started my journey, and I would say I just hit the jackpot with meeting the engine through my MIT network. But what I've learned is that there are incredible investors out there. You just need to go and find them. You need to be talking to the right people so that those investors can find you. And I've had it happen both ways. So if you're feeling stressed out, or if you're feeling, you're not feeling optimistic about where you are in your fundraising, just think very carefully about what would your dream investor look like profile wise. Why would you want to work with them? And look for those specific investors, and don't worry about the rest.
Good advice. So let's think about the future for a little bit. So the next year at Cellino, or the next 2 years at Cellino, what does it look like for you? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Yes, so much. So our immediate goal for the next year is to show that our platform can produce really high quality personalized stem cells at a development R&D level, but being able to do that across different patients has not been established so far in an automated manner. So we want to be the first ones to do that, and really show that we can decrease the patient-to-patient variability that you get from manual production of stem cells. We're going to continue expanding our team. We're in parallel already designing our GMP grade manufacturing system, which we'll be starting to build soon, engaging with very incredible potential partners to develop end-to-end cell processes that are, in specific indications and partnerships. So a lot to look forward to, I think, for us on the technical development side, the team side, and also the business development side. So really, guns ablaze. We're going all in, and I think this is our ways of making sure that we become the leaders in this industry. So we're very committed to moving as quickly as we can.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're excited about doing a lot. Is there anything you're really concerned with? What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up right now is COVID and COVID's impact on the world as a whole. I think Cellino was very fortunate to have had a very, well-received, successful fundraise during a global pandemic. I think a lot of other companies did not have that same fate, and a lot of my friends' companies had to be shut down. And I'm very grateful. I'm grateful every day that we're not in that boat, but I'm also very empathetic towards the companies that didn't make that cut. And now, when you think about how we're progressing, I mean, we're reaching a point now where, in terms of just access to vaccines, you're really seeing the tides turning in North America, in Europe, and other developed countries. But a huge part of the world is still suffering, and hundreds of thousands of people are dying from COVID on a daily basis. And that's what's been top of mind for me, I would say, in the past few weeks, because as a biotech entrepreneur, I do think it's important for us to pay attention to these things if our mission is to bring more equity and access to healthcare. And I've been very motivated and been following the work that's being done by Vinod Khosla, who's one of my investors, to support and provide more additional COVID resources to what's happening in India. And, recently I just read an article today that it's expanding into Nepal. My family's from Bangladesh. So I can't ignore those things, it's, and in the greater scheme of things, I think Cellino is going great, knock on wood. I'm incredibly grateful. We're doing everything right, but how do we as a world deal with and think about COVID? And there's also, related to COVID, the nuances of how do we get back to work? How do we make sure our societies are safe? There's been a lot of discussion around herd immunity. Do we go back to just our normal way of life? I've been avidly following Dr. Fauci and, his comments around, we had originally anticipated that we would be okay if we could vaccinate 40 to 50% of the population. That's changing now because the rate at which the the coronavirus is mutating. So I think these are all real world dynamics that will affect everything. And of course, in the middle of this pandemic, biotech has had the most explosively successful year of all. But you have seen venture capital financing for women-led companies go down. So those are just bigger concerns I have, and I'm very grateful that Cellino is doing great, and I've done great during this period. But I think we have a lot of work to do for society as a whole. So,
yeah. Those are a lot of the concerns that keep me up at night as well. Part of our charge at the Mass Life Sciences Center is to make sure that all of the portions of our ecosystem are healthy. And so, as you mentioned, some of us are doing fabulous right now during COVID, and some of us are not. So we're counting the same sheep at night, apparently, Nabiha.
There we go. Yep.
So let's talk also about how is Cellino really going to change the future of regenerative medicine? The little bit of time that you've been spending with me to tell me about the company, it certainly is disruptive and has a huge amount of potential to treat all sorts of things. Retinopathies, Parkinson's, diabetes. When you're successful, how will it really change regenerative medicine and the treatment of disease?
Oh, what a wonderful question. So all the diseases you mentioned, Jennifer, Parkinson's, diabetes, retinal degeneration, muscle disorders, hair loss, skin diseases, all of these have one thing in common. Usually they arise due to malfunctioning cells in the human body. And I want to live in a future where patients who need cells for a specific therapy, whether it's Parkinson's or diabetes, and feel very personally connected to both of those because they've personally affected my family. We should just be able to produce some cells on demand and give them to the patient and pretty much essentially cure them. It could be curative to do a one-time dose transplant if we make the right cells. And the vision that Cellino has for the future is to be able to make those cells customized for every single patient, make them from their own. They would happen if you take blood cells from the patient, you turn them into stem cells on the Cellino platform, and then you produce and differentiate any subsequent cell therapy that you might want to transplant into the patient. And that entire process is very expensive. It's very manual, labor intensive. It's really not economically viable or scalable the way it's currently done. So at Cellino, our mission is to democratize accessibility towards personalized stem cell-based therapy. So that really comes down to building a platform that can manufacture cells at scale and be able to do that for thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of patients, all in a parallel facility. So that when there's a disease detected or the disease is progressing, these cells can be custom made for each patient and then transplanted into the body. And what's incredible is we were recently contacted by one of the leaders in one of the diseases I just mentioned. They essentially pioneered the whole space. And that was the call I was just on, Jennifer, by the way, that we had to, work on the timing for, because I was so humbled and in awe that this world expert saw the power and potential of our technology. And we're collaborating together to bring the cell therapy to, all the patients that need them. And it's going to happen within the next decade. That's what's exciting to me. I think if we make all the right moves right now, we work with the right collaborators, and we have the right resources put into what Cellino is building, within the next decade, we'll have several cell therapies commercialized and ready to go for patients. And for me, there's this time component. And the reason, once I realized the power of my technology, the reason I'm pushing so hard and working so hard is because there are patients waiting for these cell therapies. And we need to get these cell therapies to them as soon as we possibly can, yesterday, ideally. Because if we did that, if this technology was available I'm getting emotional. If it was available about 10 years ago, I think we could have saved my grandma. And that's something that keeps me motivated. And I know there's millions of other patients around the world who are suffering from the same fate. So I'm excited. I'm grateful to be on this journey, and we're going to do the best we can to move quickly.
Well, you are equal parts ambition and smarts. So we know you'll make we know you'll make it.
Thank you, Jennifer.
That's all, unfortunately, the time we have. I could talk to you forever. It's really fascinating. And I think at this point, I just want to thank you for joining us, Nabiha, and invite, I think, Priya back to the stage to close it out for us for Malsey Day.
Yes, thank you so much, Nabiha and Jennifer. It was really fabulous to hear you. That was a very engaging conversation, and we all enjoyed it a lot. So we're rooting for you, Nabiha. Good wishes to Cellino.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So thank you very much. And just to remind everyone, the next Hub Cures will be on May 25th with Dr. Kim Lewis, who is a university distinguished professor and the director of the Antimicrobial Discovery Center at. So do join us for that. Now I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. Have a great rest of the evening. The floor will be open for networking if you'd like to hang around until 7 p.m. So thank you very much, and take care.